we had in the first season we had a table here, and in the second season we don't have a table here, and it feels different.
Does it? How's it changed?
Just swing that mic round.
Sweet.
It feels different because there's nothing in the way.
Nothing blocking
And it's
us.
like, oh, it's so good to have you here, man.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
What are you sad about?
What am I sad about? Well, that's a jump into the thing. I don't know. To be honest, I'm in a weird state of being mostly happy with everything. And the things that I'm sad about are not very close to me physically. I'm sad about the war with in Israel and Palestine. I'm sad about people's health that aren't necessarily in my day-to-day lives, and so it feels like a strange that I can kind of live in a bubble where I'm mostly happy about everything that's going on around me, and then the sadness comes from external sources more than internal. So state of the world more than the personal.
Why do you think you're sad about that rather than, well, yeah, where does that come from? Why are you sad about?
And I think it's a sense of powerlessness about some things. I think in my personal life, I'm someone who, when something bothers me, I address it, so it doesn't bother me for too long. And obviously with the external world, there's things that you just can't control, and you can do your part in trying to make them better, but they're gonna last a while, and it seems like people have less and less power over them. So I think that in my day-to-day, I take a lot of control of making sure that I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm not too bothered with not saying something. If it's bothering me, I'll kind of say it and fix it, and that can't help some of these issues that we're facing. And even sometimes doing a small part in something so big, while it feels good on the personal because you know that it's making such a small dent, feels almost like you're just self-satisfying rather than actually making any difference. And so it's kind of a hard line to work on, because you don't know if you want to make a difference, but then you realize that you're making no difference. So what if you're just doing it for yourself? And sometimes it's also really nice to disconnect from it all and not listen, not read the news for a week. And then that also feels selfish, and it's kind of just constantly tiptoeing between the two and figuring out where best to land.
Do you think you're selfish?
And I think I put my self-interest high on my priorities. I don't think that makes me selfish, though. When I was in high school, I did this essay about altruism, about selfishness. And it wasn't that complex. I basically just looked into the different thoughts and philosophies around what is the good action. So deontology was like one of the main ones, like Kantian thoughts, and utilitarianism, and I kind of looked at that through film. But my main outcome was that there's no such thing as an actual selfless action, but that we should separate selfish motivations into two categories: the physical reward and the mental reward. If I actually want to get something out of something that I'm doing, a job, a coffee, a raise, then that's a selfish motivated thought, and that does kind of affect how I look at an action. Not that it's a bad thing to do, but it makes that action that you're doing for that reward a bit questionable. But if it's a mental reward, I want you to think of me as a good person. I want myself to think of myself as a good person. I don't think there's any problem with that. And I still think that altruism should include that kind of action within it. So I think by my standards, I don't think I'm too selfish.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, it's amazing that you studied that and done a whole study on it. And I've asked you that question without knowing anything about that. So what work would you be happy to do for free?
I'd be happy to do work that I care about for free. Most of the work that I do, most of the narrative work that I do especially, it's work that I do for free. I'm happy to get paid for it when I get paid for it. But I have these times when I'm doing something creative, or I've found when I'm playing board games, when I forget about everything else. Like if I'm playing a game of Catan or Monopoly, or if I'm on a set and I'm working with actors, or if I'm, working with someone who we gel creatively, then I kind of forget about everything. I don't think about anything other than what I'm doing. And I also don't think about money. And so anything that kind of lets me escape the world and just focus in on one thing is work that I'm happy to do for free. It's not that I can always afford to do it for free, and there's always that conversation. But anything that's I care about, or is working with people I care about, is usually stuff that I'm more than happy to do for free.
Mm. So the creativity is an escape?
Yeah. It's not like an escape from like a bad, it's not that I'm not happy otherwise, but it's my mind tends to think about a ton of things at once. And if I'm working, then it's thinking about what I want to do. I'm not working, and if I'm not working, then I'm thinking, I should be getting stuff done. And there's these times when suddenly I'm like, wow, I just spent 3 hours and I had no thought other than I want to build a settlement on that. You know what I mean? Like it's, and that's all I'll think about. Or I'll be just thinking about exactly the scene that we're filming and what could play better and what could play worse. And I'll forget about everything. And then suddenly they go, it's lunchtime. And I go, fucking hell, it's been 4 hours. Like, how did that time pass? But it's a great feel. That's why I wanted to do what I do now. Is that escape that you say.
Who has offered you the most useful career advice?
Career advice? Probably my dad. There's like a mix. I think career advice and life advice when you're working creatively is pretty similar. It's not, life advice applies to your career, and career advice usually applies to your life. And my grandpa gave me very good life advice, which was, don't worry about how many friends you have, worry about how good they are, and hold on to them and keep them close. And I think that works just as well creatively as it does, personally. But my dad is also a creative, and he's always, it's not even advice, but he's led by example in many ways, and how to take something seriously, and it's not that we always agree, but it's definitely someone I look to in terms of how to get something done. If you know what I mean.
What kind of creative is he?
So he was an actor, and then he was a theater director mostly.
Oh, wow.
So, and now he works mostly as within theater. When he works, it's directing mostly theater.
So is that how you came into it, fell into it? Or was it conscious?
There was a lot of influence. My mom studied film and works in film and producer side of stuff more for a streaming service. My dad was an actor and a theater director. My grandma's a theater actress in Israel. So there was a lot of reasons to study film and to get into it. But I got into it completely not through them. Oh, wow. Like my passion for film is through them, and for theater and for acting in directing. But I was going to be a mechanical engineer for years. Like I was going to do something completely unrelated to what everybody else in the family was doing. And then I kind of somehow got into this world of filming cars because I was working on really nice old cars. And then because I was filming cars, suddenly I was like, oh, this filming stuff's fun. I'll take a film class to be better at filming cars. And within about a month, forgot about the car part and was just filming stuff. It just was a very fast switch when I suddenly went, oh, this is a way that I can, because I have a lot of passions in life, like things, and they're sometimes fleeting. Like I'll get really into cars and then I can move on to something else quickly, or I'll have different phases for different things. And film kind of, I can make a project about cars. And then a year later, when I'm not as interested in it, I'll make a project about, bees, or I'll make bees was a kind of random example. I haven't made a project about bees, but I can make a project about the next thing. Now,
bees
that's the next.
Bees is the next one.
Exactly.
Wow. In what ways might you still be childish?
In most ways, I think I'm childish. I think I started working really early. Like when I was 13, I started working at the car garage. And I think that kind of, because I was still a kid, but in a professional environment, I kind of learned to do both at once, to be a kid in a professional environment. So I kind of keep that going. I think it's a good thing. But I think I'm childish in most ways of my life. I get very excited about certain things. I love playing games. I like being a kid. I like being looked after and being able to just, lie in bed, get cuddles, and forget about everything else. And yeah, I think that the amount of ways that I'm still childish by far outweighs the ways in which I live my life like an adult. If it's on a scale, it's very tipped to one end.
Important though.
Yeah, but I think that even that when we work together, that sense of fun and childlike, that's like part of, and I think in some ways all of us, when we're doing these gigs, share that. That's why it's so fun when we go to France or something, because we're doing the work, but then we get to kind of have fun and geek out on certain things. And don't you? Do you feel childish?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's wonderful because we're just boys playing with toys, and that's my obsession with camera equipment and gadgets and things like that, and that's what that's all about. It's the playing element, and
we get to combine, like, well, I was never a gamer, but like suddenly gaming impacts the work, and the work impacts it. It all combines into one.
And you get inspiration from sources that you never thought you would, but it's important to be open to those and yeah. But there's a thing that I admire about you is how you do speak your mind about things. If you have a feeling about something, be it a moral aspect of something, or you just think that something isn't right, you will speak up.
Yeah, I try to. It's not that I always, like the other day, for example, I felt really bad because I saw something in the tube station. And it's like, usually I'm someone who, if something's a bit weird, like I don't mind going up to a stranger and checking if they're all right or something. And I hesitated, and instead I texted the number and was like, someone should probably check this person on this platform and make sure they're all right. And I was like, that was such a disconnected way. And then like a day later I got a call saying, so we're looking into your thing. I was like, well, it was fucking yesterday they were on the tube. Like, that's not helpful. But I think I try to, especially when it comes to intellect or creativity, I definitely speak my mind. Sometimes when it comes to personal belief or like morals or things like that, I'm happy to let someone, because people disagree over things like that. And sometimes you can tell that I like conversation. I don't like arguing. So,
What is your relationship with conflict?
I hate conflict. I hate real conflict. I love staged conflict. Yeah, I think I grew up being very scared of any arguments. Like my parents, if they were ever arguing, I would be like crying in the middle and like begging them to stop. And that has definitely like carried forward into my life. And I grew up somewhere very hippie, very like the first things you learned in class were, before we learned the ABCs, literally we learned giraffe talk before we learned the ABCs. Okay, let's have a lesson. Let's have a lesson in giraffe talk. There's giraffe talk, and it's either coyote talk or like let's say coyote talk. Coyote talk is when you say, "You're pissing me off."
Right.
You blame the other person for how you're feeling. And in so doing, you're antagonizing them. Mm-hmm. And giraffe talk is when you say, when you chew with your mouth open, it makes me feel frustrated.
Right.
So you're calling out an action and explaining how it makes you feel in order to explain to the other person the consequence of their action, but not to blame them. So basically and it doesn't necessarily work.
It's not your fault, but what you're doing is
upsetting.
This,
exactly.
But I'm just letting you know that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's like built in. And I've talked to one of my best friends moved to London about a year after me. And we've talked about how we argue with friends or in relationships. And this, we said we're both like terrified of arguing. And we have the same thing where we try to really verbalize and speak everything through. And some people just like to bash it out and then move on afterwards. And we're like, no, anything we can do to avoid, having a moment of uncomfortable energy between people. And yeah, I think I'm getting better at it though. Because there's something good about it.
It is. It's the bane of my life. Like people pleasing is the bane of my life.
Although I'll tell you what,
absolutely relate.
People pleasing and arguing for some reason when you said conflict, it went to arguing. People pleasing, like bothering someone, I don't mind at all. I don't care if I'm singing on the bus and someone's might be like frustrated a few rows back.
Right.
I don't care if I answer a phone like a FaceTime to my parents when I'm out with friends, if they get kind of, people have said, "Do you answer a phone anywhere?" I go, "Yeah, because it's my parents' call. I'm going to answer that anywhere." And I had a birthday party just with some close friends a little bit ago, and I said it's a movie night, like last January, and then I was ready to start the movie that I was writing, and some people were having conversation in the kitchen. They're like, "Yeah, we'll come in a second." I was like, No. I invited you to a movie night. You're not going to hang out here and just like shut in the kitchen. You can either leave or you can come watch the movie. And I was like very serious about it. Because I was also, they weren't doing anything. The whole party was kind of split. Wasn't enough people to be able to have, and I was like, "No, I invited you for this. You're going to do this." And they left after 10 minutes and I had no worries with it. Like I absolutely preferred them leaving than them being here, not doing what I invited them to do. And a few of my friends, like I had very mixed feedback on it. Most of them said, I wish I was able to go up to someone and say, "No, I invited you to do that." And some of them went, "What do you care if they're things?" But I invited them to a movie night. I want them to watch the movie. In the end, it was like three of us who stayed to watch the entire movie. But it was a good movie. So the three of us were very lucky to experience it together.
You've experienced the creativity.
Exactly. So people pleasing, actually, I don't think, like I care about it, obviously in a lot of contexts, but it's not what I imagined when you said conflict.
Yeah, that obviously says a lot about me. That I've related those two things together. I mean, I grew up with a lot of conflict, so I guess, and the people pleasing comes out of that because I'm terrified of conflict because of that. And at the end of the day, this podcast is fundamentally about me because I'm doing it. I'm asking these thought-provoking, hopefully, but explorative questions that it gives us an opportunity to explore these things in a sort of space, in a forum that can share indirectly with people who are open to it. So thanks for going through it.
Well,
but what do you think about that?
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm thinking about what you said. Do you think that that carries over into your work, the people pleasing? Do you find it a hard time to stick to what you want to do in creative work because you want to please a client or you want to please
I mean, it actually varies. I have this big split between my own personal creative works like this and like the films and things. I sort of separate them in my mind as because it's come out of me, it's worth less. And because I'm working on somebody else's project, there's actually less pressure. It's this really weird, which I'm starting to discover is quite odd. I'm more relaxed working on somebody else's project than my own in a way.
Do you prefer to be more relaxed when working, or do you like the stress?
I mean, relaxation doesn't really come into it, to be honest. I think I'm constantly on and working pretty quickly. Certainly at the moment, I find it very difficult to switch off.
Do you want to switch off?
I think it would certainly be helpful. Sometimes the migraines and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's just very difficult. I used to find talking about gaming, I used to find gaming relaxing, and now I find it pointless.
Right.
Because I see the ones and zeros, and I'm not feeling like I'm, because I'm not making progress in reality. I'm making progress in ones and zeros that somebody on the other end of the ones and zeros can go, click, and then you've achieved all the things that you want to achieve in the ones and zeros. So it now I've sort of made that leap. It feels like a waste of time. Does that equal maturity? Does that equal growing up? Does that, or have I lost that ability to play? So maybe therapy. Back to therapy.
Well, isn't this basically therapy?
Yeah, I mean,
in some way,
it's
time dedicated to yourself. And I mean that for myself in this case.
Yeah,
but it's also, I think it's any conversation is where you're talking about how you work and how your mind works.
Would you prefer to be a psychoanalyst or a doctor?
That's really funny that you asked this question. My family was just here, and my great aunt is a analyst. Thank you. And we had this whole long conversation about it and what it is. And she's like giving me some articles to read and a Freud book that's like 860 pages. And I was like, I don't know if you understand how long it will take me to read this, but great. Interesting. I would prefer to be a psychoanalyst. Yeah, definitely.
Why?
Because I don't want to be a doctor. No, because, well, yes, but I think I'm very interested in people's minds. So, and I'm not that interested in people's bodies and how we work on that level. I mean, I think that I am, because I live here much, and I think as I get older and I can't do this because my knee's hurting, or I can't do this because my back, it might start to kind of shift. But right now, my world is completely in the mind. So when I'm looking at someone else, I'm thinking about their mind, not about their knee or their. And I've never had any interest in, I did biology in school for like a year, a semester, and that decision like planted in my head that I'm going to do mechanical engineering because I'm not interested in biology as a science. So then I skipped the next thing of bio and did 2 years of physics instead. Like, it's not something that appeals to me, knowing how we work on that level.
So what is it? Obviously you make films. You're a director. What is it that you're trying to say?
Yeah, well, it's funny because you asked the question. I told you only why I don't want to do directing and not why. So psychoanalysis is interesting because it's explaining how someone works. And I think that a lot of my stories tend to be about death and about family, which are two things that mean a lot to me. And I think that relationship really, for all of us, or for many of us who are lucky enough to know our grandparents and death are like those two things are linked. And they're also linked in many of my stories that it's dealing with someone in intergenerational grief, basically. So I think I really am trying to kind of delve into that, but a lot of my stories tend to focus on how wonderful death is. Like I think it's a great thing that we die. I don't think anything happens after you die. I think you're a pile of bones under the ground or in the ocean or burnt. And I think that that's why it's pretty great. And I had a lot of time to, my grandparents, my first grandparent passed away last year. So I had over 20 years of my life to like imagine it as a hypothetical and got really into it. And I kept thinking maybe this whole philosophy that I've kind of built in my head around death will just shatter when someone actually dies who's really close to me. And it didn't. And it was kind of this thing where it happened. And I was like, okay, let's just wait and see. Is this whole thing? It's like, no, I'm very comfortable with everything that's happening. And so I think that understanding of morality and of gratitude towards those who give us love and wisdom is usually what I'm trying to tell in my stories. And it's probably why I'd be more interested in psychoanalysis, is that I think a lot of those issues people have is because of their family or how they were brought up, or how they look at death. They're scared of how they're going to die or what will happen when they die. And those are the things that I actually find the most comfort in. So being able to kind of navigate someone else's doubts on that is something that I think appeals to me, and is basically what I'm doing through film, trying to do.
So why do it through film?
And because it works.
Rather than psychoanalysis.
Yeah. I think it works it works on me way better than psychoanalysis will work on me. I haven't done psychoanalysis, full disclosure. But being entertained by something that's teaching you, I think will always be more powerful than being lectured about something. And not to say that psychoanalysis is lecture. I think it can be really interesting. And I think that because of the films I've seen that have been talking about psychoanalysis, or the conversations I've had. But I think films have this ability because you're seeing the world through someone else's eyes, both the filmmaker and the character's eyes, it's not just about you and how you look at the world. And when psychoanalysis is just talking about yourself and kind of delving into why you think the way you think, but just understanding how other people think and the things that matter to other people, I think can be way more insightful. And the fact that that's done in a beautiful, emotional, and often entertaining way is like the cherry on top of the whipped cream, So it's something that I'm good at. Like that was something that quickly I said, oh, I know that I can understand this language. I can speak this language of film. It's I understand how to put that shots together, uninflected shots. If you put them together, they tell a story. That comes naturally to me. I understood that in order to tell a story, you have to have conflict. You have to overcome a conflict. And someone in an ideal story should change. Sometimes they don't change, and that's the story. But story structure and filmmaking tools were, because I grew up watching a lot of films, that was kind of a given. So everything that I've learned has been about techniques in doing or different ways to do. But the basic language was something that I just went, yeah, I got that. And that I feel that I can add something to it. That you can play around with what is this medium. It's not defined. There's a lot of ways to take it in interesting and different ways than I think have been done before. And I've been enjoying, especially recently over the last year, most of my projects, I've been going, okay, this is the way that like my head immediately says to do this film. but how can film as a medium be used to enhance the story I'm telling? So I don't like, I like other people's films. In my films, I don't like pretending that I'm not a filmmaker telling someone a story. I like that being addressed, because I think often people will, in a film, kind of understand that it's a film that they're watching. And that can sometimes be a barrier. But if it's addressed, then it's not a barrier, because we're agreeing this isn't real life. This is a film that's being shown to you, and it's being shown to you for a reason. And so yeah, I like kind of just being on the same page with the people who are watching it, because I think that lets us tell much more, and then they're not lost when things get personal.
It feels almost united in a way. It's like it's that whole treating the audience with respect kind of idea, I guess.
Yeah.
Look, I am trying to tell you a story, and that's okay. You are watching a film.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes and lead you down a garden path and make you believe something at the end.
Well, I am trying to make you believe something in the end. I think that's the point. As I'm saying, you're watching a film because I want you to
something
believe
or understand something. Like, it's the difference between propaganda and a propaganda film or a documentary that's just putting the information out there and saying, look.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, actually.
Okay.
I think belief and understanding when it comes to life is very similar, because we don't know anything. So in understanding something, yes, understanding something is what the film will do, but the reason that I'm telling it the way I'm telling it is because I want you to believe something. So the film's about death in this relationship, let's say, between a family member that's passing away. But I think something about death, and I want you to understand that thing. But I think that belief in humanity will be helpful. So I do want you to believe that thing. But I'm addressing I want you to know that I want you to believe in it, so that it's not like a hidden thing. You don't have to believe in it. You understand that I have a thought that I want you to believe or understand, which I think are similar in this way. And it's up to you if it works on you. And you can think about it afterwards. It doesn't have to work on you. But I have a belief that I want people to believe in with most of my films.
It comes back to that idea at the beginning of you saying, I had it and now I've lost it. I was just literally harking back to the first thing we talked about.
Yeah, that I'm not scared to tell people what I think.
Yeah.
And what I want them to do if I've invited them to something. It's the same thing as the birthday party. It is the same thing as me telling them, look, I invited you to watch a movie. We're watching a movie. And they don't have to stay to watch the movie, but that's what is being done at the thing. This film is showing, hopefully it's entertaining, and the story, I think that there's two sides to a film. There's the experience of just watching it and being entertained and enthralled and moved emotionally. And then there's the intellectual side of it, which is hopefully something that you think about afterwards and not during. But that's where the belief comes from. Like, there is something, for example, I'm writing something about and basically that theory I have about death, where you die right at the end, there's this metaphor that I've come up to explain it. And I think that if people believe this, it would help them and the world. There's no chance that everyone will believe it. But if the people watching my film the metaphor basically is that we are born as piles of wood, and that as we grow up, our parents lean down and give us a bit of their flames. And we have a little flame on this big pile of wood. And every time that someone gives us wisdom or love, which are basically the same thing, they're giving us a little bit of their flame. And eventually, your fire burns big enough that you start giving out more fire than you're bringing in. And at the end of the day, you're a pile of burnt wood that burns out because there's no more wood left to burn. And we can put a blowtorch to that wood and try to keep it aflame, but there's no more wood to burn. It's time for it to go out. And all the fire that you've given out in love and wisdom. So it's a spiritual belief based in science, I think. And I think that this way of seeing love and energy as life, and that it's not, a cosmic stream, that everything is connected. It's lit in this conversation. We're giving each other flame and life and love. And then that's all that matters. And at the end, we're going to be dead, but we've given you, and you're going to pass that along, and I'm going to pass what you're, and that's it. And I think that that's what gives life its power, is the fact that the wood can only burn once. And I think if people thought that, we'd put much more priority in things that are important and much less in things that aren't. So I want people to believe that in the context of a story that's entertaining and, blah, 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 blah.
This is kind of a level of philosophy that I feel like people start to understand and start to appreciate when they have been through something significant or lost somebody significant. I don't know anything about your history in that regard. So where does all of this come from?
Interestingly, it comes from not losing someone for a very long. It comes from anticipating losing someone for a very long time.
Yeah. So back to your grandmother.
My grandfather, actually. And my grandparents in general. I have always been really close, and I was lucky enough to have 5, not 4 grandparents, because my grandma remarried way before I was born. So I had 5 grandparents, and I was close with all 5 of them, and lived on the other side of the world from all 5 of them. So every time we visited, the thought of this could be the last time I see them. And I remember at a very young age being aware that they might die before I see them the next time, with no reason at all. None of them were sick, none of them were this, just the fact that people die, they could die before I see them again. And that used to really bother me as a kid, especially with my grandfather, who was the first one to pass away, actually, but only last year. And we were linked from the day I was born, basically, carrying me around. He taught me how to tell stories. He told me every day we'd sit down, he'd tell me stories about his whole life. Who knows how many of them were true? Who knows how many of them were? But that's where that love of storytelling really comes from. And I remember several times when we would part, I would just cry, because I was terrified that he'd be dead before I saw him again. And there was even once that I convinced him to come back, and this whole thing. So I think that the fact that it bothered me so much meant that films about, like when I saw The Seventh Seal for the first time and death was a character, I suddenly went, oh, this thing that's so prevalent in my mind is suddenly personified. And how lovely is that we can have a conversation with it and come to understand it. And then I took, we studied Camus and existentialism, and suddenly I went, well, that kind of ties with the fact that no religious belief that I've ever heard has ever spoken to me in any way. But this kind of does, like this way of looking at life as meaningless but meaningful, that we don't matter in any way and there's no bigger meaning in life, but life is still pretty meaningful because of the way we live it, is like, yeah, well, that speaks to me. And these kind of thoughts all came together right as that grandfather was diagnosed with cancer. And the fact that he was going to die became much more, while it still took years after that point, it just became much more a reality of this is going to happen probably sooner rather than later. We're getting to that point. And that urgency of let's figure out what I think about that, combined with the fact that I was surrounded by teachers and art that was speaking about this stuff, gave me the time and space to think about it and kind of form my own beliefs on it. And then it ended up taking so long for him to pass away that I'd kind of gone, okay, I think I figured out how I look at this stuff. And it's obviously always evolving, but I kind of came to this point that I was like, this is basically how I look at death in life. And like I was saying, I was not sure if that was going to just topple down when he passed away. And when he did, I was just happy about it. And it was a really strange feeling. Like at his funeral, I said that I feel like I've been thinking about it so long that now that he's died, my mind's taking care of it and it hasn't reached my heart yet. And it took a really long time for it to reach my heart. Like I didn't cry for months after he passed away because I didn't feel sad about it, because my mind had so long in advance kind of thought about it and come to terms with it and accepted it, that when it happened, I went, oh, great. Now it's like you've built a chain, but you just need to start the electric shock to go through it, and then it just goes through it. Because you've already put the wires there to connect point A to point B. And it took a lot of time to come to the point that, and I never even really cried about it. I just felt sadness for missing. And that was something that, because I was so logical about it, it took a really long time to feel. And so all the way back to your question, it comes from not losing someone and just like wanting to prepare for it. And since then, you know, another one of my grandparents passed away, and the same feeling of what a life well lived, and how much love have they given me, how much fire have they given me that I can now give out to the people that I talk to.
So was it a relief in the end?
In the first one, it was absolutely a relief.
In the end,
it was absolutely a relief for my grandfather. The second grandfather died because he fell, and so that was a bit more of a bummer, because it wasn't out of sickness, it was out of coincidence, even though it was still a good feeling, because he was in pain for a few days in the hospital, and it was okay, you've given out, you know, all this love, let the flame extinguish. But there was a lot of fear in me with my first grandfather of, you know, when someone's near that point, and maybe you've experienced this, that there's always the conversation of the family of like, we can do this that might give him another 3 months, or we can do this that will extend it another week when it really gets to that point. And, you know, and there was like this point where we could keep forcing food and it would technically keep him alive, but there was no chance that he was, you know, he wasn't speaking, he couldn't open his eyes, he couldn't hear anything. We could force him to keep living, but there's no, so for me, it was I was very concerned about him not dying. At that point, I was like, just let him go. He needs to go. And there was even the conversation, you know, a lot of I believe in euthanasia as a wonderful thing in life, and that in the right context, it should be used. And if it's right for you and if it's right for your family, then great. And it wasn't a conversation with him because it's not an option there. But this option of, is there ways that we can help him let go and relinquish, was very much, and in the end, we didn't do anything either way, and it just happened. But it was a lot of relief. Yeah, a lot of relief.
Wow. So for you, what would be a good death?
For me, a good death would be having lived a nice life and being able to be loved and give a lot of love. And however it happens at that point, it happens. You know, it's going to come one way or another. I'd rather it be quick and easy. But that's just because I don't want to, it sucks to be in pain. And so, you know, actually my grandfather's brother, who also lived a long and wonderful life, he heard that, I think to be honest, I don't know the specifics, but I know that he was diagnosed with something, and he was really upset about it for a little bit. And about a week after he was diagnosed, before things really took, like he wasn't having that many symptoms of anything, he was at the doctor's. They kind of were explaining what it was. He biked home. He was still biking at his age. Took a nap and never woke up. How amazing is that? He goes, I'm at a point, I don't want to take this next step because I feel like I've reached the point that I want to reach. And now, from what everyone's telling me, and especially with the family history and the thing that he was diagnosed with, it was something that he knew what it looked like. He didn't want to go there. And then he just said, okay, then I'll just let go now. It was amazing. It was heartbreaking because it was so unexpected. So, you know, a lot of the family was really upset about it. But at the same time, everyone was like, it's so what he wanted, that it's like, there's something so amazing about that. So I think in many ways I look at that as like, that is a perfect death. Understood where he was headed, didn't really want to go there, has felt that he lived enough life, went to sleep and didn't wake up.
Wow.
I mean, don't you think that's
mind-body linked? Like it's the definition of.
I don't know how you do that. I mean, it must take. I don't know how that happens. To me, that's like cosmic luck. That's amazing. You know what I mean?
So, what's your thoughts on kind of an Eastern philosophy of, Buddhist philosophy, life is suffering?
I'm not too familiar, to be honest, with the life is suffering way of looking at life. I know a lot of people where I grew up are Buddhists or very spiritual, and Eastern philosophy kind of applies much more than like Western or religion. And I know that those people tend to look at life much more similar to how I do. In kind of this essence of being between each other. I don't think life is torture, though. Like, life is suffering. There's this Woody Allen who, there's a mixture of thought about him for me and around the world. But he has this quote that he says, life is, horrible, suffering, nightmare, but it's all over way too quickly. And I love that quote. But I just I don't experience life as suffering. So I just think, I think it's a great quote, but I don't necessarily agree with the way of looking at life. I think life is defined by the nice parts, not the bad parts. So life is, about love, and that's it, basically. Life is love. Full stop.
Omri.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been said by many before. But I'll take credit for it from now on in the history books. It shall be written.
Be your headline.
Yeah, exactly.
Bloody marvelous. What do you wish people understood about you?
I've been asked that before, and it's changed a lot through the years. Like, I think I used to feel that I'm locked in a certain character type in social settings, and that I can't change the way I act because people expect me to act a certain way. And then I kind of had this shift into less caring what people think about me. And so now it's a bit harder to say. I wish people understood a bit more of how my mind is working when they're around me, and that it's a bit weird to explain, but I think sometimes I can be very strange, and that can sometimes, it's not that I've ever had someone come say to me that I've hurt their feelings, but I know that it can sometimes kind of bump someone up because I'm not really responding, or suddenly if I have a thought, I have to complete it. And it can be like a weird thought where, I've imagined, what if the Tesco meal deal was 10% cheaper? And then suddenly my mind will go, okay, if it was 10% cheaper, then it'd be 35p less. And if it was 35p less and you get 7 meal deals a week, then how much would you save in a week? And how much would you save in a year? And how much, and I suddenly have to finish this math equation. And what percentage of an average person's annual income would that be? And I have to, and I'm suddenly kind of just going, wait, I need to just, and it can be weird to be, and it can be off-putting. So I wish people understood that it's not, that I'm not aware sometimes of the things that I'm not noticing. And because sometimes I just won't read like a situation. And at the same time, when I am, I don't know, it's a tough question to answer. I don't think that I actually have an answer to it. I think what I'm saying now, I don't mind that much, but it's just something that I know upsets people sometimes. But I don't think it's an issue for people to be upset a little bit. And something people knew about me. I know that there's a good answer to it, that is truthful answer, not just sounds good. What do you wish people knew about you? Maybe you'll give me inspiration.
I'm just generally terrified whenever I'm out of the house. Yeah, would probably be it. Yeah, walking down the street, I'm afraid of upsetting somebody.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that an active thought, or is that like...
It used to be. It used to be, and I can have really bad flits of it, when I just feel like, I'm everybody's problem. But what I realized is that was just narcissistic, because actually I'm thinking that I'm everybody's problem. Nobody cares. And so that was the kind of grounding, revelatory result of 4 years of therapy, which was the pizza delivery person does not care. They just want to know what you want to order. Yeah. They don't care whether you fumble up the phone call and you sound like an idiot. They just want your order.
That's fantastic.
I mean,
what kind of therapy did you do?
It changed my life. It took me 3 years to get to that point because I'm an idiot. But it changed my life, and now I can do things.
That's not a slow time, I think, to get to that kind of. I think that's and thanks. To sum it up so well. What kind of therapy did you do?
Psychoanalytical therapy, yeah, once a week.
So here's a question: is psychoanalytic therapy as much about you as the relationship between you and the therapist?
Well, the relationship between, as I understand it, I'm no professional, but the relationship between you and the therapist helps the therapist understand you, because you project onto them who you think they are and things like that, and you make assumptions about them and things like that. I sort of feel like I never did, but obviously I did, because one does. Projection is a thing that we do all the time, as I understand it. So yeah, I mean, but
was it one therapist one psychoanalyst the whole time?
But these people can read you like a book. That's what they do, and it's amazing. And I'm kind of envious in some ways, because I feel that helps me, just be more relaxed in knowing that, like, really we're all going through the same stuff, under the scenes and behind the scenes, and what we're sort of constantly doing is putting up a facade of getting through it. And I mean, it changed my life.
So, because you seem to be someone who knows how to read people, and I think that comes across when you're making films, and when you I remember when we were doing that Hesh video, that you knew how to talk. You could understand what she was where she was at in order to get what you needed from her, and what not to focus on, what to focus on. Do you think that going through psychoanalysis, it's a bit funny, because while you were being treated, do you think you were also learning things that now, even now, like, well, probably very much now?
Well, this is part of why I'm so fascinated in doing this, and this is what Characters is all about. Really is just sort of it's not therapy, because I'm not a therapist.
Yeah,
but I don't really know what, I don't want to put it in a box in a way. I just want it to be, look, let's sit down and we throw these interesting questions around. It's very one-sided because I have the questions. But what's interesting is that some people will ask me the question after they finish their answer, and other people will sit and wait for the next question. It will, because I haven't given you any insight into what this is going to be, and so the assumptions that people make is very revealing about them, because it's based upon their experience, because our experiences are compressed, and that just and the reason it's called Characters is because those experiences, along with your nature, all the rest of it, and your ones and zeros. It's who you are, and it's so interesting because it's an analysis of character. So I'm kind of hoping that people, people who are actors will sort of gain inspiration from it. Directors, other creatives, but glean something from it for whatever they need or whatever they're interested in.
It's interesting. In Hebrew, there's a word tipus, which is like a type, is really what it. But when I translate it to English, I say a character.
Okay.
And when you say someone's a character, like that person's a.
Yeah.
But it's much more frequently used. So that's when you sent me the name of the thing. I was just thinking, because we all are, and I've always wondered if when someone meets me, and I think sometimes that if they were to explain, they say, yeah, he's a character, like he's a tipus, because that can be very weird, and maybe it's that same thought you're thinking. Maybe they don't care that much. Maybe they're not thinking about me afterwards. But when you explained it at first, I was like, I wonder if this is like a collection of, it's like almost different cards, and I guess everyone is their own card in that sense, and where everybody is a character, like,
absolutely, in their own way, if they're brave enough, perhaps if they're brave enough to step forward and show it, who they really are.
I think that's
what's really going on.
I think
behind
that's
the scenes.
the thing.
And
where everybody is when you get to a
thing.
certain point, but sometimes they won't display it outwardly from the beginning. That's so. Then your answer has given me an answer. I think that I have no block of being myself. I am completely my mind is doing what it wants to do. I don't hold an appearance to kind of try to be a character. When I'm being really nice, it's because I'm interested in what I'm saying. When I'm not being so nice, it's because my mind is somewhere else. It's not because it's against someone. If I'm, interviewing someone, it's because I want to interview someone. I'm not really ever putting on a facade, and that's what I think I wish people understood about me. That I'm usually not covering up for anything. You're basically, what you see is what is happening. That I think sometimes people will read more into than they know.
And the way that you had two different kinds of reaction to the birthday party is very revealing, because it's people respond to having a genuine character very differently.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this person's saying what they think, and either you can sort of see leadership and respect,
or it's controlling and manipulative,
or it's like, oh, you're not doing all the people pleasy, thank you, this, that, and the other stuff that I feel I have to do, and so therefore I don't have time for that, or resent you, or it can throw up all sorts of things.
What's nice is that I don't think anybody was surprised by me doing it, because they know, especially because it was, if it was strangers or this and that, people I didn't know, they might have been a bit more off put. But everybody knows me; they know that I'll. So I think even the people who were kind of saying, it was more out of wasn't like, can't believe you did that, but it was out of that's a like, do you know that you do this kind of thing? And yeah, it's fine. But I think that what I've learned is that the people who don't do that, it doesn't mean that they're weak or that they're scared to do it. So some people. Like, I care if someone pulls out their phone when I'm showing them a movie. If I'm showing them a movie and someone suddenly goes on their phone, it's like my whole attention will move to that. Some people that doesn't bother them. It's the act of watching them. Like, I want them to watch this thing because I think it's great, and then I want them to. And in many ways it's selfish because I think it's great. So I think that they need to realize that its greatness is achieved, and then think, oh, Omri knows this great movie and he introduced me to it. Whereas some people just want to sit together and watch a movie, and they don't mind if someone's a bit distracted or someone's having a conversation over there. They just want some time together, so that when they say movie night, it's not because it's because they just want to be together and they like movies, but they don't care.
But this is this whole idea of projection, is that if somebody is putting that idea of he's doing this for this reason, that's actually a reflection of them and how they would behave if it was them, or what they would think about the situation because I want them to watch my film so they think I'm great,
Yeah.
rather than I want you to watch this, rather than what you think, which is I want you to watch this film because I think it's great.
Yeah. No, that is an interesting distinction between the two. And I think that for the most part, it depends on who I'm showing a film to. Sometimes, you have a conversation with someone and you go, okay, I want to impress this person that I watch an intellectual film level, and I'm a young filmmaker. They should probably invest money into my next film.
It's not black
It's
or
like
white.
not
It's not
black or
either
white,
or,
but it is an
there's a
interesting.
mix.
I think there's always both of it. For me, I think I always have both of them, and I realize that has a, that is selfish in some way, because I want people to know that I have good taste. Like I like people trusting the fact that if I say a movie's good, it'll be a good movie, but also it's a fucking great movie that they should watch. For the most part, these are movies that I'm not just randomly, because if I want someone to watch a movie, it's because I actually want them to watch the movie. I've picked that movie, or this group of people I think will love this movie. But there's also this thing of, like if you're friends or if you're in a relationship or whatever, and something matters to you, like a movie that has influenced my life, I want to show my friends that movie, even if it's just to share this thing that matters to me. Even if I don't think they'll love it. I care about them watching it because it matters to me, the movie. And I think that the movie I picked at this movie night probably was like a Mel Brooks comedy, wonderful movie, by the way, called To Be or Not to Be. But it's like an old style of humor. Everyone who stayed and watched it loved it. But people who are a bit scared of watching a movie that's a bit older and that they don't know the actors in, and that like they'll kind of be pulled away from it. But I want them to see it because it was a movie that I watched probably 100 times as a kid and that I love. And it's my birthday, so I get to pick the movie that we're watching. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. And I think that that's what people were surprised by. That's that, no, I picked the movie because I like the movie. I didn't ask what people want to watch. I picked this movie because I want to watch this movie again, and it would be fun to watch it with a group of new people. I think it's a great movie. I know that some people will connect to it less than others, but I think it's a great movie and I want to watch it. And that's why I invited these people to watch it on my birthday. So I don't know if you get what I mean. It is selfish, but that's what I invited them for. Like I don't think I disguised my selfishness at any point. I invited them to watch a movie that I wanted to pick because it was my birthday and I wanted to pick a movie to watch.
But if that's the reason, and you're quite plain about that reason, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Dude, you're a legend. It's great. It's great to hang out. It's great to see you.
It's lovely to see you.
I love working with you when we do get to work together.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on, and thanks for coming so early.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to see you do this stuff, man. Like for real, you're it's nice to see that, because I know that it's like taken a while to say, okay, now I'm putting things in my own hands. I'm doing this project because I'm interested in this project. And it's the people's, and in some ways I'm interested in this project that's about everybody else. But it's fantastic, man. It's exciting to see you do it.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate your support.